Number 4, do-it-yourself pitfall is not following formalities. Estate planning documents have to have formalities. So this is something that and I have seen these forms, even though the form might tell you exactly what you need to do, because it's not something people are familiar with, they often fail to follow the formalities. And if you fail to follow formalities in the estate planning documents, either is not good, it's not going to be enforceable, or there's going to be a lot of work involved after your death to make sure to get the necessary testimony in court to prove up your will. So every state has its own rules, its own will formalities. Durable powers of attorney have their own formalities about whether they need to be notarized, whether they need to be witnessed, all of those things. The estate planning document that has the most formalities is the will. So what does a will require? The will requires that the person signing it, the testator, the testatrix, sign it in front of 2 witnesses who are not disqualified witnesses. They can't be anybody related to the testator by blood or marriage. They cannot be anybody who will or might inherit from the testator. They can't be any kind of interested person. So they have to be independent, objective people. So when you do a will signing, what you do is if I'm conducting it, I ask the person, is this your will? Yes, it is. And do you understand its contents? Yes, I do. And do you understand what is the nature and bounty of your estate? Who are the objects of your affection? Does this provide for your beneficiaries as you desire? Are you competent, not subject to undue influence? Are you of the age of majority? That means over the age of 18. And yes. And would you like, these 2 witnesses to be the witnesses to your will? Yes, I would. Then the testator starts signing. We actually generally have them initial each page so that pages can't be substituted out later. Testator signs it. The witnesses sign under the testator's signature. Is that all there is? No, there is a next step, and it is to make this will a self-proving will. Because if you don't do this next step, then what happens is on your death, the 2 witnesses have to either do an affidavit or come into court in some way and prove that your will was actually valid. So how a self-proving will works is those same 2 witnesses who were in the presence of the testator while they signed the will and each other's presence, their signature needs to be on an affidavit form that says kind of all the things that I just said about the testator asking them to witness it and appeared to be of the age of majority, understand the will, not under undue influence, etc. And then a notary public is the one who then notarizes the signature of the witnesses to the self-proving affidavit form, not to there's no notary of the testator's signature. So it's pretty confusing, and it's really interesting. Hold on. I was just looking at, an instruction for a self-proving affidavit that came with a form. It's a lawdepot.com form, and it's a very accurate instruction, but it wasn't done. And so why wasn't it done? Well, because people aren't lawyers, and you have to follow those directions, to the detail. And so it is very, very common for people who do online wills or codicils to not follow the instructions. So as a result, what happens then when the instructions aren't followed? Number 1, the will could be invalid. If the will is invalid, what that means is the laws of intestacy of the state come into play, and that might not at all be what the testator wanted. Or let's say that the will is valid, but the self-proving part wasn't done. In that event, then there has to be, a fairly significant amount of work to get those witnesses to testify as to the validity of the will. So again, this is kind of the penny wise, pound foolish part of doing online wills is, even if it's appropriate for the person, if you don't follow the formalities, then really you've created more of a mess, certainly than you ever intended to. So not following formalities, that is a big takeaway.